Okay, real talk. HR should not be someone's random side hustle at your company. Compliance, benefits, payroll, employee support. It's a lot. TriNet helps take that off your plate with full-service HR solutions designed for small and mid-sized businesses, so your leaders can focus on growing your company instead of Googling labor laws at midnight. TriNet's been doing this for 30 plus years, which means they actually know what they're doing and your people feel the difference. Check them out at TriNet.com. We are back with episode 3 of the AI Readiness Gap, produced in partnership with TriNet. And today we're getting into one of the most practical questions in this whole series. How do you actually hire for AI competency when the skill set is still being defined in real time? The stat driving this topic, 37% of HR leaders are already anticipating that evaluating AI skills in candidates is going to be a real challenge. And nearly 4 in 10 of us raising our hand saying, yeah, we don't really know how to assess this yet. But the thing that I keep coming back to, we've always had to hire for skills that are hard to measure: judgment, adaptability, culture add. It's not a new territory. It's just potentially a new pressure. And joining me today is Kristin Russum. And she's the person I want in my corner for this conversation. Kristin is the Director of Organizational Development at TriNet, where she helps small and medium-sized business navigate change and hit their strategic goals. She brings over 20 years of experience in HR and OD experience across financial services, manufacturing, tech, and beyond. And she's known for building data-driven solutions that actually move the needle on things like performance, engagement, and retention. Kristin, welcome to the pod.
Well, thank you. You made me sound really good. I love that.
I was like so impressed. I was like, I can't wait to be this. Like,
you're so kind.
I love organizational development, all of this stuff. Like, this is probably the most exciting time for a nerd like me to be in HR.
Oh yeah. We get, my team and I, we call ourselves, OD geeks. We nerd out on this kind of thing. And especially when we get clients that are like, yeah, we want to do this. We're like, yes, we want to do this with you and we want to help you. And it's always loads of fun.
I love this. I'm going to be sending you random emails about things I'm geeking out about.
Absolutely. Knowledge, sharing is caring, as they say.
Yeah. I don't know many people who want to geek out with me on this topic. So I'm pumped to talk about it because we have some interesting data here. Like my first question is, we got to start with this. 4 in 10 HR leaders are already anticipating that evaluating AI skills in candidates is going to be a real challenge. As somebody who's actively hiring, it is a real challenge. Why is this so much harder than assessing other technical skills?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's just the unknown, and it's evolving. I mean, 6 months ago, we weren't even having this conversation, right? I mean, that's how fast this has moved. It's just all of a sudden, it's like AI is everywhere. I can't tell you how often the AI, like in my inbox, the AI has come up and having conversations with, clients about this exact same topic. You mentioned, right? I've been in this business for 20 years and I don't even want to count. I've run out of fingers and toes. I've been doing this for a minute, but I remember, and so I am going to date myself. And that for those that are listening, when the internet first came on board, or when any new technology comes on board, HR has always had to really kind of struggle with finding talent with a variety of skills. I know when I was recruiting for IT, it was like, how many more acronyms can somebody throw at a skill? And, and so I think often HR, and rightly so, right? We assume some responsibility for funneling the candidates through, but it's not. And I keep telling my clients, this is not an exclusive HR function. You are meant to guide and facilitate. You have to pull in your partners from other departments to understand like what skills. So if I take that analogy on the IT, I don't know squat about Java and C++ and all of these things. And so I have to leverage other teams to see, what are you using? How are you using? What do we need? And my skill as an HR professional, and I think this probably equates to a lot of HR professionals, is I can help to identify some of those other skills that maybe aren't as readily apparent, like how adaptable to change are they? How much of a culture fit are we going to get? Is it going to be a lot of friction? I can do a lot of those types of things. So I bring in candidates who have a basis of knowledge that then we can lever other teams to go, okay, now I need you to get into the technical expertise. So I think that there's a lot of anxiety about this, but my counsel would be just relax a little bit into it and know that whatever you are trying to plan for right now is going to change in 1 month. So we can't always be chasing this, because as soon as you get skilled in something, it's going to be obsolete. So what's the backdoor approach to this?
Yeah. It's changing so fast in real time that we're just like all trying to keep up with it. And so like when you're talking to a candidate this week, it might be different from your answer in like 2 weeks, honestly. That's how quickly things are changing. And I think we're used to things changing quickly. I mean, I've worked at 4 venture-backed startups, so I'm like used to things changing quickly. If you're not used to things changing quickly, this could be your opportunity to like really open up your mind to what I write today might be not real tomorrow. Like we just have to accept that because it's changing so fast in real time.
I love it. That word ambiguity is the one that keeps coming to mind. Like if I'm recruiting for somebody or if I'm trying to find the talent, I mean, ambiguity has got to be top of the list of that, being very comfortable with that. And so then you might lean into different skills. How are you at decision? What do your decisions look like? What does your judgment look like? How do you make those decisions? Because that's the thing that is going to transcend any technology that presents itself, is their ability to discern, okay, when do I pay attention to AI? When do I validate? Do I just take it and now I love this new phrase that they're using, work slop. Am I just regurgitating something that comes out? Or am I really just using it as a partner? Am I augmenting my thoughts? Because, candidly, I think there's this fear, right, that AI is going to take over the world. And I mean, I guess it could if you allow it, but I don't plan to allow it. I plan to use my own expertise and knowledge and use AI just to validate my thinking or to expose me to different resources or things that I wouldn't be able to curate on my own, given that, there's only 8 hours in a day.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you said you're not going to allow it because some days I'm like, we have to fight it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's here, but like we also have a part in this, and it's
Yeah.
really interesting just thinking about it because I'm excited about the tasks that I never have to do anymore because it can help automate, so I can actually
Mhm.
spend deeper time thinking about really tricky challenges that we're navigating through as an org. Right? Those are the
Mhm.
things I'd rather spend my time on that than sending an email again that I send a regular email that I send every single time or kicking off another offboarding process that I have to start from fresh because I didn't templatize it. But if I do it in AI, I could actually do the whole thing for me and then tell everybody all the things. So it is really interesting. And I'm actively hiring on one of our teams for our product and our eng side. And we are really looking for people who have like AI first skills. And that's even been interesting asking the engineers, like, how are you using AI? And the answers is such a range.
Yeah. It's across the board.
When you're thinking about AI competent candidate, what a
Mhm.
tongue twister. What does that actually look like right now? Like, is there a specific profile, a set of behaviors, a way of thinking that signals somebody is actually going to be good at working alongside AI?
Yeah, so I go back to that ambiguity. I mean, first and foremost, I think that's the one thing. And how do you measure that, right? We ask the right behavioral questions to understand how they've been in those types of scenarios before. How have they managed through that? What are the red lights that they needed to be mindful of? Having a sense of judgment for me is very important. Like, what is their strength in knowing when to use AI, when not to use AI? How, so we would want to really test that thinking. I would be less focused on, do you know Claude, or do X, Y, and Z AI tool, and more about how do you make the decision which tool to use? What were the applications that you did? How did you uncover when there was a problem? How did you validate the exercise? Like, you want to have the thinking behind that, because if somebody is coming in, and I guess, the other thing, and it's a sidebar, and I'll get back to what I was saying before, but that I think particularly with skills that we don't necessarily possess as HR practitioners, it's very easy to be dazzled by language, and to be dazzled by like, oh, I've done this and that and this and that and the other. It's like, okay, wait, pause. Let's back up a little bit and let's talk about, tell me, like that whole adage of tell me a time when, tell me when you did this or what that looked like. So really, I think leaning back on some of the foundational expertise that we possess of behavioral questions to understand some of the core competencies that we would want someone to be able to possess, regardless of the technology, because we know in 2 weeks it's going to be something different.
Yeah, I love that. Like judgment has come up so much. Like I'm looking for genuinely curious people. Like I feel like curiosity, I always say is like it's one of my three core values. I'm so curious about everything. Honestly, I've lived like in my head probably 18 different career paths because I'm so curious about how everybody else does work. But when I'm talking to candidates, I also want to hear that they're curious about things too. Because that means like, okay, a curious candidate is somebody who would then go explore different tech
Right.
without me having to tell them go explore different.
Go look at this tech, or
Yeah.
but also knowing when to. I think that judgment and curiosity are such integral features, and I'm with you. I mean, part of my job requires curiosity. I have to be curious about other companies and what they do and how they do it and why they do it, but curiosity mapped to judgment to know, okay, when do you stop and actually do the work, because you can go down a rabbit hole trying to look at things and research and all of that, but you have to know, okay, all right, I've done enough research, now it's time to dive in, or I've done enough here and now I'm ready to get down to the nitty gritty of doing the work.
I, I feel like I could geek out with you forever. I've
We could get a glass of wine and we could just chat about all kinds of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
it makes me excited. Okay, so like I don't love recruiting. I've overseen it so many times now. I don't love it. It's not ever been fun, but this is actually the most fun I've had in recruiting because I feel like it's taking recruiting to another level to even think about what are these behavioral things that we always really want, but like sometimes we've gotten distracted by the shiny technical skills that people have to have. And in this like AI world, potentially those technical skills we don't have to spend as much time on, and we're really trying to dig into, does this person exhibit the set of behaviors we need and that they can actually be successful here? That's the hardest part of recruiting.
That it really is. Yeah. Finding that secret sauce. I mean, like I've always made a joke about, if I could figure out a way to measure common sense, I'd be a millionaire. Because some of that is so critical of being able to just have somebody that can kind of figure out, okay, I
Yep.
don't need to be told to go do something. I'm going to go figure it out. I'm going to know, what are and having a clear sense of what the guardrails are, and being able to ask, candidly being able to ask a candidate, what are some of the guardrails that you put in place to make sure that AI is doing what you need it to do. I mean, I think those are really, really good questions to think about. I mean, I heard somebody the other day, they were talking about AI and that they post a job on whatever one of the job boards, and then before they were getting 10 resumes. Okay, that's easy enough to screen and manage, and now all of a sudden they're getting hundreds of resumes, and that is a function of the AI tool behind the engine behind that. Is now it's just picking up keywords and sending stuff out. And so I think, to your point, it does, the AI is making some of that easier, and that it is finding keywords and it's stack ranking candidates. But then it comes back to your judgment as an HR professional of figuring out those candidates that really do possess the skills. Do they align with the values of the organization? And those are the folks that you would try to put through to hiring managers, or if you're hiring in HR, right, understanding how you're using AI and what you want that vision to look like is so very important.
I think something we also focus on a lot is like, how do we build fair and consistent interview processes? And I kind of get scared in the age of things changing so fast, like week over week, maybe month or day over day sometimes. Like, how do you actually build a fair and consistent interview process for something that is about like moving this fast? Is it even possible?
Yeah, I think so. I think it goes back to some of the things that we're talking about, which is, if I'm looking to hire in TriNet, we have a stated set of values. We have 5 core values, and that is the anchor for any interview process. I do feel like in many cases, it's very easy to find somebody that's got the skills that you need. And I know that's what we're talking about, but what's really important to success in any organization is, does this individual resonate with the values that you have published, and can they live those values day in and day out with the temptations of some of the AI that make things easier. So for me, I think that that's one way to build a consistent process is having your values kind of foundational. But I also go back to some of the ways that we have coached and worked with some of our clients of building out a recruiting plan. And that seems, sort of rudimentary, sort of going back to, HR 101, but it is, do you have a consistent set of questions that you're asking of every candidate? Are you putting them through the exact same, level of evaluation and the the viewpoints there. And then I think that helps to eliminate some of the wonkiness or the human component, or and frankly, we all know we have biases, so we have to figure out. And I think a defined recruiting plan helps to mitigate some of those biases. Doesn't eliminate them entirely, but at least it brings them and surfaces them a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm such a fan of a structured interview process rooted in
Mhm.
values. Something interesting that I saw yesterday was Replit on their hiring page. They actually have a section called like "You would not work well here if," and it
Yes,
walks people through like who we think, like if these
is
are your,
not going to be a good fit. Yes.
but we're telling you it might not work here. And I think that conversation is hard to have with candidates, but I try to have
Mhm.
it as well because I'm somebody who's worked at 4 venture-backed start. I like startups, right? I don't do well in
You like the craziness, don't
I
you?
like the chaos. I don't do well in like overly structured environments where everyone
Mhm.
has a clear lane and you can't do anything outside of your lane. But I also understand that because I don't do well there, there are lots of people that do well in that environment that wouldn't
Mhm.
do well in the chaos like me. So, like what you said earlier, a call back to the ambiguity. I'm always trying to help people understand this is our environment and it's okay if you won't work well here. It just means we shouldn't hire you. And I think that conversation is like really nuanced and hard to have sometimes. But how I deal with it is I just tell them, like, it's very chaotic here. I'm going to walk you through like a set of questions to see behavioral questions to understand if this would be an environment you thrive in, because not everyone thrives in that. I thrive in it, but not everyone does. So it's like that too, as part of your, when you have a consistent interview structure that's also rooted in your values, I think you'll have a better outcome of finding somebody who could actually thrive in your environment versus anchoring too far on technical skills or something else entirely and not thinking about what is this shared community environment we have and who can or cannot be successful in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that reverse. I don't know if it's, the if it's reverse psychology or not, but that idea of putting it out on your website that says, people who aren't successful here might possess the following, like, what your environment is. And if you don't know what your environment is, maybe that's where you start, right? Is really understanding and doing a bit of an autopsy on folks that may have not succeeded in your organization. What are some of the skills or traits that they might have possessed or that they needed that your environment's not going to provide? Or because that then allows a candidate to perhaps self-select out, like, oh gosh, you know what? That's not me. And I don't need to waste anybody's time. We think about, like, you'd ask the question, like, what should I be looking for? And, how do we keep the learning ability comes to mind. How well can somebody learn? Tell me a time, tell me about a new technology that you adopted. How did you uncover it? What did you look for? What are the things, what did it take you to learn? That, I think, I would rather, for most roles, I feel like, I mean, I know that this is not a perfect analogy, but a lot of things people can learn if they have the ability, they have the curiosity. Things like work ethic, things like curiosity, things like common sense. You can't really train some of those skills, right? They
Yeah,
have to really have them coming in the door.
yeah. Oh my God. I wish we could train critical thinking because it just feels like a lot of
Oh,
people are lacking it.
yeah, yeah. I don't know that that exists anymore, unfortunately.
It is tough sometimes out there.
Yeah,
How did you come to the conclusion of this idea? Like, walk me
yeah.
through how you thought about
Tell
that.
me, tell me how you got there. Well, on TikTok, it's like, oh,
Not me fighting, but I'm just kidding. No, it is. Small business owners did not start their company so they could spend their Sundays drowning in HR paperwork. Let TriNet handle all that stuff. They can do payroll, benefits, compliance, the whole 9 yards. So business owners can get back to the work that matters most to them. Go check them out at TriNet.com. It's such an interesting time to be. I can't stop saying it. People are probably sick of me being like, this is the best time ever to be in HR, but it's kind of how I feel. This stuff is so fascinating for how quickly we're moving. It finally feels like a lot of people are like, HR is archaic. Like it's just so set in its ways. And I'm like, well, actually, now more than ever, we have to rethink how we do every single thing at work. And guess who's doing that? HR. HR is doing it before any other team is doing it because we are feeling the real pressure right now and how these things are impacting it. Like we're talking about assessing candidates. Like this AI has really changed how we're thinking about assessing candidates, from the influx of like applicants we're getting to how we're assessing them to how we're getting through our pipelines to what does structured look like to, I think the biggest thing that also comes out when people are talking about AI is bias, because I do think there are risks to bias and exclusion when you're thinking about like how to assess for people's AI skills. So how would you get ahead of that in the interview process? Like if we are assessing people for AI skills assessment, there is bias. Is there any way to get ahead of that?
Well, I mean, I feel like a broken record, but I think it is going back to your foundation, going back to those skills that we're looking for, knowing that, somebody coming in, you've done this, right? Where you meet people who are good interviewers.
For sure.
They know all the right answers. They know they have all the right buzzwords, and it's dazzle and it's smoke and mirrors, and your job as an HR person is to try to parse through that and not be dazzled. I mean, that's why that recruiting plan is so fundamental, because you could have somebody that's a lousy interviewer. I mean, honestly, but they could be brilliant at the work and they could be a brilliant addition. Your job is to get underneath that noise. The other thing that I think, like you mentioned just briefly, is that HR is at the forefront of some of this work. And so I think one of the biases that I think happens is this expectation that you have to have a STEM background or some sort of engineering background to be strong at AI. And that's not accurate, right? We're seeing AI in every facet of every role that comes through. I can't tell you how often we use it on the OD side, and our HR teams use it, and our customer service teams use it. So not allowing the technology moniker of AI to get in the way of, assuming that somebody doesn't possess the right skills to do the work.
Yeah. I, there are times where I'm just like, am I going to wake up in like 5 years and my job is going to look completely different from everything that's happening?
It is, right? It's absolutely going to look different.
It is.
Yeah.
And that terrifies me at the same time. It's just like when you're thinking through all the things like, how do I get ahead of this too? Because I think in HR too, we're feeling a lot of pressure. You're right. We're not technical. It's interesting because I started my career moving into a technical field. I was like a technical PM. I wanted to be a technical product manager. I always loved that. So like this time of AI in HR, I'm like, this is exciting. Like I'm a nerd. I'm like Googling tech stack things and how does this connect to that API and MCP? And I'm like, I'm all up in it, but I don't want that to stop an HR person, because just because you're not technical does not mean you will figure out a new technology, right? Exactly what you said. There's so much opportunity. And that also means when you are talking to a candidate, just because they haven't built all the most perfect things in Claude doesn't mean they're not capable of it.
Exactly. Maybe they just didn't have the opportunity. They didn't have the resources. Maybe they're, our company does, like I know that we've got some firewalls around what technology we can use, because it's been vetted and we understand the back end of that. And so, it's what technology you use may not translate. And so you don't want to discriminate on somebody that just hasn't had the exposure. It's their learning ability. How I think the word of the day should be curiosity. We should just have that like on a pillow, like you have to have curiosity in all things.
Yeah. Also just makes life fun.
It really does. It really does.
I was the kid who asked my mom like why every time she told me
why? You're like, listen, here, have a popsicle. I just need a quiet moment, right?
My mom would be like, stop asking me questions. I'd be like,
I know. Well, I'm well suited for the role that I'm in, just because I have such a curiosity about what our customers do. And it's amazing. Some of our customers, like, I will ask them, well, tell me, first, will you tell me a little bit about what you do? I can look at your website and I'm still going, huh? And half the time I'm like, God, I didn't know. Of course, somebody has to be able to do that. It's so fascinating for me, like how innovative some of our customers are and how creative they are and how they found such a niche for things. I'm constantly amazed and astounded at, individuals who, in the startup community is like how entrepreneurial they are and how they saw this niche and went, yeah, I could solve for that. Here's my musings on a napkin when I was at Starbucks. And, now we've got a company based on this.
Someone was like, do you want to be a founder someday? And I was like, me? I'm not sure. And they were like, are you sure? Like, you're always thinking about all these. And I was like, yeah, but I have fun building. Like, so once the ideas, I'm like the builder. You want to call me in to like put all the foundations in order and figure out how everything works together cross-functionally. So I think it's so cool that you get to talk to so many people from different experiences, because those are just like data points for you and help you do your work in a really interesting and unique way. I feel like I would also thrive at that job. I'd be the most annoying person. They could never get me off a call.
Okay, tell me a little bit more. Yeah, I was on a call right before this with a client, and we had a compliance issue, and I'm like, I want to get operationally with you a minute. Can we do this? and I'm trying to tell you how to run your business, but not telling you how to run your business.
Yeah.
And the idea was, how do we mitigate some compliance
Yeah.
issue by getting creative operationally, and I could see their wheels turning. They're like, well, I hadn't thought about that. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to let you
I'm gonna let you
percolate on that one for a minute,
go.
and
I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
I'll let you go and let you think about that one, and we'll come back together and talk about it a little bit more.
I love that. Well, this whole time we've been talking about skills, assessing skills, things HR teams need to know. For a company that's updating their hiring processes right now, what are
Mhm.
the 2 or 3 most practical changes you think they can make immediately? I know immediately is a big one because, like,
Immediately is really hard. Yeah. I am surprised when we started doing this work here with TriNet, and surprised not in a bad way, but just surprised a little bit, is how many companies have don't really have a set of they maybe they have values, and I'll use like integrity as one of their values, and that's the thing that they've got broadcast on the walls, right? But they haven't taken the time to spell out, like, what does that mean? How does that manifest in your environment? How does integrity show up? And that seems like an easy exercise, but really it's not. And so I think from a practicality perspective, because we've anchored a lot of this conversation on, hey, I think you need to really look at your values and make sure that you're still hiring for those and you don't get caught up in the buzzwords. And so if you haven't taken the time to look at your values and really reflect on, how does that value actually manifest? Or conversely, because you mentioned this, how doesn't it show up? Like,
yeah,
what doesn't it
I
look
broke
like?
that.
Right?
Yes,
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 the backwards version. Like, what are some of the behaviors that we see that aren't consistent with our values? Like, that helps you sometimes to hone in on that. I think that could be really, really helpful. And for me, that's a lot of the practices that we have with our customers is really very much anchored in that exercise. Or if they haven't done it, so maybe they created a set of values that were based on the founder, and they've since migrated from this founder mentality to, this expanded, they're, Series B or Series C or whatever. And the values haven't kept up with where they are. So it's a good time to just reevaluate that. I think that would be the advice that I could give, because I think that going back to that foundation, like the winds of change and the AI and the technology, that should be a pretty set constant. But I would say another practical thing would be perhaps creating an environment where we can be really open about our AI usage or our lack of knowledge. I know at TriNet, and I'm really thrilled about something that we're doing here, and it's a team that's called AI Forward. We meet once a month, and it's just various teams coming to the conversation and showing how they're using AI. Sometimes it translates, sometimes it doesn't. But what it opens up is this conversation around, oh, I didn't think about that. And it makes, like, I think for the past 6 months, there's been this sort of secretive, well, I'm not going to tell anybody I used AI. Is that cheating?
yeah,
And the reality is, it's not if you disclose it, right? And say, okay, this is how I used AI to help with this. I mean, you don't have to, we're not the Wizard of Oz. You don't have to show everything behind the curtain, but being very open about where AI use is appropriate, where it's not. And that, I think, in my brain also, then one thing that we could do is maybe start to craft, I'm such an HR geek, but creating a policy, creating a policy around AI, like what's appropriate use, what's inappropriate use. That's an easy win, and one that you can get buy-in from various leaders. You can get it documented. It doesn't have to be so rigid. It needs to be flexible because the technology is changing. But, like, hey, we're going to approve AI. Here's the technology that we're allowing. If you're going to use AI, you need to disclose it, in what format that you did that. I mean, and, those types of things, I think you can craft that. And I believe that could be a fairly easy win. That's pretty easy to implement. And then just know that you're going to need to, as with a lot of your policies, I think this one probably would need to be on a more frequent cadence to make sure that it keeps up with the evolving nature of the technology.
yeah. I love that. We do, for every single role we have a role kickoff form, which is like a Google Doc that's about
Uh-huh.
2 to 3 pages. And it literally says, here's what the job is. Here's what they'll be working on. Here are the must have, nice to haves. Here's an anti profile. We put that
Mm-hmm.
in that form too. And then also some managers go as far to do a 30, 60, 90 day. And every single person involved in the interview process is required to read that document as they are assessing people. They need to really understand what the role is. And I'm thinking like I might add a whole new section around like AI competency and have something in there around how we're assessing for AI for this role. But I just think like our first step was always to like document everything. And I think that is really helpful too. Like you gave a bunch of other, like you should have an AI policy that should be visible to everybody. You should be very clear about what you're hiring for. But I think like the foundational thing that really changed the game for us in recruiting was having a document that everyone could read if they were involved in the interview process to actually understand the role. Because how often has someone come to you and been like, what is that person doing here? I'm like, that's the worst case scenario.
That is the worst case scenario.
Everyone
That
needs.
is. Well, it comes back to the, like that recruiting plan and having some collective wisdom around here's how we hire in this organization. We do these things. And, I have managers that are like, well, they want to do it their way. And, it's often looked at as like, oh, HR is this, this rule follower. And it's like, well, they exist for a reason. There's a reason these are sort of best practices that have been around for, years and years, is because it works and it helps create some consistency and, all of those things. But I love that idea that everybody has to read this document so that everybody is real clear on. And if somebody has a question like, why do we need this role? It's like, hey, let's surface that before we start a parade of candidates coming in the door. Nobody needs to waste time doing any of that.
For sure. I mean, this is the time where if I were to give one piece of advice on what you could do immediately, just go audit your process. Audit and write down, this is the tip I've been giving everybody, write down the things that annoy you most about the process. Because there's also a chance that you could automate those things that are annoying you the most.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Everyone's like,
where's the pain point that you have?
I'm like, I'm approaching AI like anything that annoys me and I don't want to have to do a million times over again. I write it down and then I go figure out how to automate it. Cause that's how I've been approaching it. It's been really like, honestly, it's like really helped my personal like burnout and stress at work to think about, I don't have to do the things that bug me so often. Now I can actually do the things I'm really excited to do.
Yeah. Are the things that where your strength is, as opposed to some of the, maybe more mundane or administrative tasks that you can do on autopilot. It's like, hey, my brain is better served by doing X or Y or Z, as opposed to this routine task that I can have a machine do it.
I'm so sad because our time is coming to an end and I have to ask my through line question, which I've been asking every guest this season as part of the series that we're doing together. Before we wrap, what's one thing you would tell an HR leader who is feeling behind on AI right now?
Well, I think it's common to say, you're not alone, right? You're not alone. Better get to it. You better, sorry, I guess that's probably not, hey, tough love, better get to it, right? You better start, you need to start developing your own skills. And I think that's where that curiosity comes in. You need to figure out from an HR perspective, what are things that you can do there? Yeah. But, just maybe working with your leaders to understand how they're doing it, exercise that curiosity muscle and kind of, getting with other managers and saying, hey, can we have coffee? I want to talk about how you're using AI. And like, okay, great. Now, because HR has this wonderful opportunity to be at the forefront of leading some of this initiative. You hear HR all the time say, I'm not at the table. I didn't get a strategic seat. Well, hey, here's your time, right? Lean into this and figure out how you can craft the path forward. I think it's such a brilliant opportunity. It really is a lovely time to be in HR. I think it's so exciting and it's just fun. Again, that's the HR geek in me coming out.
Same. So you heard it here first. We feel for you, but also get to it.
Get to it. Hurry up. Get to it.
Get to it. I love that. It's like the Nike logo, but slogan, but way better. Get to it.
Get to it, man.
I love that. Kristin, thank you so much for spending time with me today and nerding out with me. For people who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can reach you?
Well, a couple of ways. You can reach out through TriNet, www.trinet.com. Probably the easiest way. We've got a lot of resources and materials out there. If you really just want to connect with the OD, we've got an email, organizationaldevelopment@trinet.com. Certainly that's a great resource. And we'd love to chat, open up a conversation, see how we can help.
Love that. Thank you so, so much.